before I be a slave. I'll be buried in my grave and go home to my Lord and be free. Oh, freedom. Oh, freedom. Freedom over me. Before I be a slave, I'll be buried in my grave and go home to my Lord and be free. Freedom! Greetings to all of you. My name is Jordan Freeman. I was born in the year 1732. My parents were Oxford and Temperance, and they were the servants of Mr. Richard Lord of Old Lyme. And as time passed on and as I became a man, in 1755, I married Miss Lily, who then was the servant of Miss Mary Prentice. I later became the servant of Mr. John Ledyard, then the body servant of Colonel William Ledyard. Now, many have wondered if blacks participated during the Revolution. Well, I was summoned here today to tell you our story. As a young boy, I always had a desire about being free. That old song represents just that. And freedom was to come over me, even if it was bought to me in death. I remember in 1765, Mr. James Otis, the freedom fighter from the state of Massachusetts, making strong pleas on behalf of slaves. Mr. Otis said that the term free must include both blacks and whites. And with that statement, the hope of freedom began to ring out in our souls. As time passed on and as America began to seek ways to obtain their freedom from Great Britain, one reason was the king had made a decree to raise taxes upon the colonists. Now, the colonists refused to pay the taxes, and the rumors of war began to brew. But at the same time, we blacks felt this was our time to seek our freedom. It was our moment to grab our freedom. 1768. The British Army has now docked outside of the city of Boston. And many of the British officers came ashore and was trying to stir up the Boston slaves and telling them to rise up and fight against your oppressor. And we, the British Army, we will protect you. But no blacks raised a hand. But 2 years later, for there to be named the famed Boston Massacre, a slave did stand up. A slave did raise his hand. The British Army is now moving swiftly through the streets of Boston. Move, get out the way! Move, get out the way! Move, get out the way! As they were moving through the streets of Boston, there they were approached by a crowd and a group of sailors led by a Negro named Crispus Attucks. And Attucks turns to the crowd and said, to stop this British Army, we must attack them at the main guard. As the crowd approached the army and the army approached the crowd, ready, aim, fire! Ready, aim, fire! Ready, aim, fire! Shots were fired. Attucks was struck twice and fell dead, making him one of the first persons to die in the Revolution. But Crispus Attucks didn't die on that great day alone, you see. Others died with him, and they were all buried in one grave. And the headstone read, as long as freedom's cause the wise contend, dear to your country shall your fame extend. And while to the world the lettered stone shall tell, where Caldwell Attucks' grave and Maverick fell. These men died for this thing called freedom. These men died hoping for this thing called freedom. 1775. War had erupted. America against Great Britain. As recruits were being made to enlist in the fight in the War of Independence, blacks were not allowed to enlist. One reason because George Washington felt that blacks were inferior and would not prove to be worthy soldiers. Others felt that blacks had the possibility of becoming traitors, and some said blacks would just turn and run and cower down. But sir, that wasn't so. See, blacks fought in the previous war, the French and Indian War, and proved to be brave men, to prove to be great soldiers. But being told we could not fight, and this war of independence was a sad day in our land. It was a sad day in our state, being told we could not fight. And I'm reminded of the sermon preached by Mr. Levi Hart of Griswold, who said, "What has the unhappy African committed against us to authorize us to steal them and bribe them and carry them over 1,000 seas to enslave them for life? Tell me, what did they do to cause us to enslave them for the rest of their lives? What did they do to cause us to enslave them for the rest of their lives?" But I don't want to die a slave. I want to be a man. Sir, I want to be a man like you. I want to be able to fight. I want to be a man. But our time would come. Our time to bear arms would come. Our time to rise up would come. But not until 1777. But in 1775, Lord Dunmore, Royal Governor of Virginia, had issued this call, summoning all blacks, both slave and free, to fight for the British Army. Many blacks ran away. Some escaped from their masters. Others tried to get to the British Army that was docked at sea. Those blacks that arrived upon the British ships, they were given a patch on their shoulder saying "Liberty to the slaves" and naming the British Army our African hero, our African hero. Freedom was ours. Freedom was so close, it was ours. You could sense it. Freedom was ours. But those who chose not to escape, those who chose not to fight for the British Army, was warned and told and threatened that if you were captured and you did not have the proper papers, you would be whipped. 39 lashes, you would be whipped. Over you would be. Our time would come. Our time to bear arms would come. Our time to rise up would come. 1777. Blacks, both slave and free, was allowed to enlist. But I, Jordan Freeman, did not enlist, but others did, hoping to gain this thing called freedom. Connecticut enlisted nearly 500 blacks. There were 5,000 in the Army and 2,000 were at sea, and all of Connecticut's soldiers were into integrated companies, and they all had some of the same duties as white soldiers. They were musicians and orderlies and cooks, and freedom was ours. It was close. It was ours. You could tell it was ours. And I could still hear from the rafters Mr. Benjamin Baker of Griswold, who said, "What has the unhappy African did for us? What has the unhappy African committed against us?" And Ebenezer Hill and Bristol Baker of New Haven saying, "Given this opportunity to fight, I will prove what this thing is freedom is all about." Ebenezer Hill from Stonington served in a company that was commanded by General George Washington. And Ebenezer Hill saw the British Army surrender at Saratoga. Freedom was ours. But now, as I think, years are going on in this war. Connecticut finally has its first taste of battle on its own soil. The location is Danbury, Connecticut. The British Army has now raided the city of Danbury, burning 19 houses and 22 barns and storefronts. And the British Army now is approaching and attacking. They move to the home of Major Daniel Starr, and Ned, this slave from Reading, arrives. As the British Army tries to overtake the house, Ned is captured. What shall we do with this Negro? Ned tries to fight harder for his freedom, and Ned is immediately killed. Ned is one of the first persons who did not enlist to die for this thing called freedom. Ned gave his life for this thing called freedom. But now, as the war progresses, 6 years have now gone. 6 long years, and rations are few, and manpower is getting weak, and less years have gone by. Connecticut finally raises an all-black company. It was strange. Why would they do that now at this junction of the war? But maybe it's because what the great Black Battalion from Rhode Island was doing against the British Army, the same hope was for this company. And now, 6 years have gone. I remember my most memorable moment in the Revolutionary War. Boom! 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 The British are coming! The British are coming! The British are coming! The British are coming! The British Army has now planned to storm and raid Fort Griswold. There are 800 British soldiers to 150 militiamen. The British are coming! The British are coming! My master, Colonel Ledyard, approaches and gathers at the fort. The British are coming! The British are coming! Who commands this fort? Colonel Ledyard rise. I do. I will die before I give up the fort. The British is coming. The British is coming. They attack. Boom! 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 I race over to the fort. Lambert Latham, this other slave, is with me. And we enter into the fort. Ready, aim, fire! Ready, aim, fire! Ready, aim, fire! We enter the fort. You can't tell who's black or white from all of the smoke from the muskets that's in the air. Ready, aim, fire! Ready, aim, fire! Bodies are all around. They're searching. Colonel Ledyard! Colonel Ledyard! Can't see Colonel Ledyard in here. Ready, aim, fire! Bodies are everywhere. Colonel Ledyard realizes we're not going to win the battle. Who commands the fort? The order is again, you do, Colonel Ledyard said. And no! Colonel Ledyard is killed with his own sword. Lambert Latham tries to help, and Lambert Latham is bayoneted 33 times. No! Ready, aim, fire! Find a big pike. See a British officer try to scale a wall, and Pike it.